Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm speaking to you from my hometown of Eastbourne in Wellington City. It's a beautiful seaside suburb and it's a beautiful day, as you can see. I spent the vast majority of my life in Eastbourne. Grew up here and very lucky that it's bordered by the sea and hills, which do relate to the topic that I'm going to speak to you soon about. Just a couple of things that have come to mind. One thing is this is my second attempt at filming this video. The first time I ran out of storage on my phone, so I've had to clear off some photos and videos. But again, another good analogy of life, just getting rid of the stuff that was getting in my way and impeding me on my path. So I had to remove it, and I speak a lot about removing things that are getting in one's way, or getting rid of the darkness and being able to live in the light. So here I am. And I just wanted to also quickly talk about the concept of home. So I call Eastbourne my hometown, which is my home physical town, and I spent so much time here. But of course, your home physical town can be where, or place can be wherever you choose, and it's good to choose somewhere where you feel obviously comfortable and good and happy. But the most important home, which again I have experienced, so I'm talking again about from my perspective, is the coming home to myself. And what does that really mean? It means that I have dealt with my past, I've dealt with my prior persona, I have removed so many things from my life, my conditioning, my learnings, the people I've been around, the situations I've been in, even good and bad. It's all been removed and left behind me, and that all relates to ensuring that there has been a death of the ego. So it sounds quite dramatic, the death of the ego, but it is the ego which pretty much controls your life, and it's the restrictions. It's what restricts you in your life. It's kind of hard to be universal when you have constraints brought about by what you've learned and what you've experienced. So coming home to oneself is really the death of the ego and the rebirth into the real you who is a universal being, a universal holistic being, not just the persona or the person you believed you were based on everything that had come into your life and you had believed to be true. I believed who I was true. I do not believe those things now. I believe I am a universal holistic being. So that's pretty dramatic stuff when it gets to that level, but as you know, I say I live in the light, and I know where I'd rather be, living in the light and bringing it back down to living on the physical material plane, which we all have to do while we continue in this physical incarnation. So it's not a matter of going up to the light and living up there and not dealing with day-to-day happenings, and that's not what it's about. It's about a balance. It's about bringing it back into your life, the real you. Anyway, I'll move on to today's topic, and I'm so glad it's a nice sunny day, and didn't want to film it inside for this particular topic. And the topic today is nature. And just at the outset, I'm going to quote Albert Einstein, and he said, "Look deep into nature and you will understand everything better." He didn't say you'll understand some things better, or you'll understand one thing better, or 5 things better. He said you will understand everything better. So when I'm dealing with topics like nature, and I was talking about people in my life, and I've talked about addictions, and I've talked about magic, these are really, really big topics. But these are really big topics that perhaps we don't, well, I certainly didn't in the past, take time out to really put the time and effort into understanding and actually experiencing what they actually meant. And yet these are the things that can influence one's life so materially comparative to the things that I was putting energy into. And some of the things I was putting energy into were dark things. So it was draining my energy. It wasn't giving me ongoing renewed energy. It was draining my energy, and I had to start again. Whereas in the light, the energy is perpetual, and it's so much easier. And I talk about that all the time. So what I'm going to do with regards to nature, I'm going to talk about how nature's influenced my journey, again with some kind of tangible examples for me. So I expand on these topics, of course, in my writings, which I have a big sort of life story, my spiritual journey, viviendolamahia.nz.com, so living the magic in English. The spelling of that is on the Instagram page, and you can find it elsewhere on my Facebook, etc. And those are, as I say, expanded version of what I talk about here, but I'd just like to give you a brief overview of some things that have occurred. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was from 2021. It was in 2021 that I had a small dilemma, I guess. So I'm on my spiritual journey, and yet so it wasn't a straight path to the light. And in 2021 I moved to another city in terms of a relationship, but it was very short-lived, and it really wasn't one of my true, deep love relationships that I've experienced, and it failed. And I came back to Wellington City, and I was somewhat distressed, depressed. It was noticeable, but I was working it out, and in fact I worked out something big, which was I bought a motorhome, which, as you can imagine from what I talk about, has had a massive impact, positive. And I waited in Wellington for some time, but I had to stay, or I came to stay with my cousin. She put me up for a period of time, and she saw my, despair, and it was there, it was obvious. And anyway, after a while, I got on the road in New Zealand, and it was in the middle of the COVID time, so there was some restrictions in terms of where I was able to journey to. But I saw a lot of the country, and I then travelled the North Island, and then I travelled to the South Island. And what I was doing just by default, I was steering clear of the cities, because it was in the cities that there was so much restriction, and there was, this fear of getting COVID around people and everything related to that. So I was spending a lot of time in nature, and it was sort of spring and summer in New Zealand, so the weather was a lot better. And I was spending a lot of time on beaches, and that's something I do. I grew up near a beach, obviously, and going forward, beaches and coastal areas are just my scene, and I spend a lot of time walking, a lot of time. And in those travels, for example, I was in the South Island of New Zealand on the west coast, and going to very remote locations, so to speak, and doing what was a hobby of mine, or I guess still is, was doing some panning for gold in some of the creeks. And the experience of that, sitting out in nature on a beautiful day similar to today, surrounded by trees, a creek, the birds twittering, hardly anybody else around. I would sum it up like this: when sitting in the creek and experiencing that just beautiful situation, if I ever chose to go back to work in an office, I would imagine that I'd be sitting in the office thinking about, oh, I'd like to be back in the creek. But sitting in the creek, I can guarantee you I'm not thinking about sitting in an office. Anyway, on that journey, after about 3 or 4 months, I returned to Wellington to my cousins, and I went round for dinner. And she had a friend there who I'd met a number of times, and they kind of both looked at me. So I'd actually met the friend also at that time. I'd returned from Auckland, and they just mentioned, in particular my cousin just mentioned, look, just this noticeable difference in me. Just totally, the person I was, the person facing distress and dilemma, was now a lot happier. And I pretty much just said, well, being out in nature and in the sun and having time to think about things and not so many distractions, I got rid of a lot of my distractions. You can't help but be happier. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's no great mystery. And yet, in my sort of prior being, I certainly spent time in nature over my life and walking the beaches, you know, of Eastbourne and other places and up into the bush a bit. But I never had time to really absorb it and think below the surface. So what we're talking about is kind of what Albert Einstein talks about there in that quote. Below the surface, in nature, is the universe. In everything is the universe, but in particular in nature is the universe. It's a massive, obvious thing before our eyes, and there is more to life than meets the eye. And talking about the eye, or you know, when we just look at it from a visual two eyes perspective, we see the surface, but the distractions don't allow us, at times, to really think below the surface. What is going on below the surface? And when you get into nature and you get into the studies and what's in there, you know, the golden ratios, the Fibonacci number sequences, just everything is in there, and it's all around us. And if you can look deep into it, you will see, reflective in nature, you will see yourself. So nature is in us, and we are in nature, and that is without a doubt. But it's not necessarily something that just one moment you wake up and one day and you realize that. I'll just move on to a second example of how nature has influenced me. Just recently, really, I spent a lot of time, 3 or 4 months up north, traveling and beautiful big beaches and walking, a lot of walking out in nature. And I brought back with me from Peru some new information, new insights. And I was absorbing everything, and I was just still working out for myself how was my purpose in life going to manifest. And it all came to do, and I speak about this in my current written story that I'm doing. I had a revelation of meeting someone, and it all came together. It's just in thoughts, everything came together, and my purpose in life came to me 3 weeks ago from this video. And now I am living my life mission. So everything that I'd done in the past came to a point in time where I'm now deeply immersed in my mission. And I realized that all that time that I spent walking in nature, away from the distractions, and absorbing nature and feeling nature and knowing nature for what it actually is, it is the universe around me, and I am nature and nature is me, aligned me even further to the fact that I was a universal being. I talk about the universe a lot and the openness and being open to everything, but these are the things that are tangible on the physical material plane. We can absorb nature, we can see it, we can feel it, we can think about it. The stuff that I talk about up in the other realms is not necessarily, as I say, easily accessible to everyone. It's accessible to everyone, but not necessarily easily accessible. And just talking about being up in the realms, you know, you can't live your life just up in the realms. You have to live your life balanced. You have to be in all realms. Right, I just wanted to, before I close off, I pulled out a chakra tarot card from my deck today, and it's quite appropriate. So I talk a lot about bringing things together. So the card today, hopefully I can get that in there very well. That card is the Wheel of Fortune, and it's surrounded by a green border, and the green border in this context of the tarot chakra deck represents the heart, most important of the chakras, really. I mean, follow your heart. It's just so important. But everything has to be in balance for you to confidently stride forward doing that. I'll just quickly read the definition of that card. The Fool is now using all the tools the magician gave her. She is summoning the forces of the universe to manifest only what is true in her heart. We all have the tools we need to create that which we choose. So, I mean, that sums it up. I mean, in my life, I have been, I guess, observing all the tools that I have at hand, all the tools, nature, people, experiences, ayahuasca, Peru, an understanding of me from my past, and it took a long time to understand myself, I can tell you that. And I put all those tools together, and now I'm manifesting my life. And I'm manifesting a brilliant life, a magical life, a life in the light, a life full of energy. So if anyone was to say to me, oh, I don't think I can do that, my response would be, you can do it, you're just not ready for it. Anyway, I'll leave today's video at that, and thank you very much for listening to me. I will see you again soon, and as always, I'm going to sign off with enjoy the journey. We will meet when we should. Namaste.